How's it going? Dave from Comic Book Investments. 35 years in the industry, 15 years as a dealer. All right. So I'm gonna do this one. I'm gonna do a market analysis on a comic book. I want to try to go more into the details of the comic book, talk a little bit about it, so people can know when they're investing. Kind of why and what they're investing in. So this one I'm gonna do today. This is a book I picked up this week. X-Men #1. Um, so basically, what makes this book special? It's the first appearance of the X Men, and you got Magneto, Cyclops, Beast, Marvel Girl, Iceman, Angel, Professor X. That those are who appeared in this issue. Wolverine and Colossus and other ones that you might know, Bishop or Gambit or something. They all appeared many years later, but this was the first. So um, originally, uh, this book actually wasn't that popular. Um, it actually ended up getting canceled. Um, so they came out with it and in the 60s and actually is a ripoff of what DC was doing with Doom Patrol. And Doom Patrol has a TV show out now. But Doom Patrol had, which they called, I believe, the Professor, who was a guy in a wheelchair, and it was a bunch of misfits that had unusual powers. And there's that saying that uh, good artists create and great artists steal. Steve Jobs said it, but people said it before him. People say that all the time in music as well. Um, that's what a lot of producers do actually in music now. They actually literally just they'll play a song and take out the lyrics and the melody, the person singing the song, sing over that song, different lyrics and different melody, take out the music, replace the music with something new, so it sounds literally the same but not really the same. Yeah, it's just a thing that they do. But anyways, so Stanley kind of stole the idea, but again, that doesn't really mean too much because he took it in a different direction and snowballing into something completely different. Um, so, I mean, there's a time that, you know, Captain Marvel, Shazam, was sued by DC because it was too similar to Superman, and there's a whole lawsuit about it, and they lost their character. They lost Shazam, and then DC just acquired it from Fawcett Comics. Anyways, so this is the first appearance of X-Men. Now, they were not doing very hot back in the day, and they tried to put they put like a better, fresh, new artist on it, Neil Adams, at the time, and he was really good. And that still didn't even help the book. It ended up getting canceled after issue 66, the Battle of the Hulk in the last issue, and then they just kind of did reprints. And then it wasn't until the mid 70s when Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum came around and revamped them and came out with, Colossus, and Storm and Nightcrawler and more of the ones that you know of today. And that just blew up. And then that was a huge run. And then, other artists and stuff. And then the X-Men, like, no one could get enough of the X-Men. They had so many different X-Men books, all different types. And they'd spawn off different ones, like the New Mutants, all sorts of stuff. X Force and X Factor, and Uncanny X-Men, X-Men Blue, X-Men Red, like all sorts of stuff, X-Men Gold. Like just tons and tons of books. And now they're huge. Um, Probably one of the biggest, I guess like group of characters there are. Um, but it all started with X Men #1. And so anytime you can, since the X Men are so popular and they're coming into the MCU, and even if they weren't coming into the MCU, I'd still give the same advice. Get it. It's a good book to have. Like, it's crazy to think in my time doing it how much it's gone up. Um, I remember a time when I could pick up a low grade copy of X Men #1, $1,000, no problem. And now it's like low grade copies are selling for 4, 5, 6, 7,000, depending on the grade. Um, so yeah, they just keep on going up. And I don't think it's not going to stop anytime soon. And so if you're looking for a long-term investment, get it. And it doesn't really matter what grade you get. I mean, don't get a coverless copy. That, I mean, it'll still go up, but people like to see the covers. So, and try not to get too low, because the more of the cover you can see, the better. So in the hands of a collector, you know, if all of a sudden you've got like this whole thing tearing off, or a big page or something, like, yeah, um, don't go for restored copies. I never suggest investing in restored copies unless it's like an action number one. That's all you can get. Um, but maybe in the future, when these become so unattainable that people start looking for restored copies just so they can fill their collection or whatnot. But yeah, I would invest long term. Get it. If you can get a mid to higher grade, go for that. Um, Books like this, when you're looking like 9.8 and 9.6 and 9.4, it all comes down to, because there's so few of them, who's willing to pay that much for them. So there's a little more risk, but there's a lot more reward. So you can, pick it up for like 150 grand one year, and then it could go up to 300, or in some cases it could stay the same. Um, but if you get like a middle range grade, like where people can afford it and it's collectible and they want it, you'll do fine. So long term investment. Um, yeah, we'll dive into the numbers, more of the numbers here in a second, but basically, yes, buy it if you can. That is my stance on it. It's a great book to have. All right, let's dive into the numbers. So here we are. We have X-Men 1, 1963. This is a site I go to see market value, and this just shows you exactly what things are actually selling for. So you got like crazy up here. It's like, but the higher you go up, it's like, when was the last time a 9.8 was sold? There's not that many of them, and we can actually see how many there is actually. And there is 2 9.8s, 4 9.6s, stuff like that. These people aren't selling them. The people that own these, whether it's an investment group or a collector, they're not coming up. So good luck ever seeing a 9.8. And then maybe once every decade, But as you get down more into the affordable stuff, you see a lot more. So 9.8, the last one sold was for $500,000 back in 2012. And let's see if there's any that have been sold. Nope, just one. So ever since they've been recording stuff, since early 2000s, one is sold. All right, so like 9.2, and this is the problem with the higher end stuff. It could go really high, it could go somewhat high, and kind of just like who's going to pony up at that time. So the rate of return, well, if you can just look at it, obviously it's went up a lot, but you could have got back 15 years ago or so, you could have got one for 20 grand. Now they're 130. The year before that, 128. A couple years in the 80s. But you look, it's like a one sells. But since even here, it's like, look, 55, 60, 62, 48, 50, 57. Now it's back up again, because at that point it's just kind of who's looking, who's willing to buy, who has the money, just all that kind of stuff. But look how crazy it's gone, And so we'll dive a little more into the numbers. I remember I had a 7.5, and I got it. I think I got it around somewhere around here, 13 or 12, right there, and I paid around this price, a little less or something like that, and I was selling it a couple years later, for in like around this price. And it's crazy. If I would have just held on to this book, I can't, because I have to sell these books to make money. But it's like, yeah, you put in $5,000, you get as high as 30 now. It's great. But I can't hold it for that long. That's why I'm saying long term. Look at this. It's like kind of, even if without this big boom right here, it's a steadily going up. I mean, that's in the 7.5. Let's look down here, more of a 6.0. Look at that. Back then, it was selling for, average price was, $1,700. Keeps, going up. Just nice and slow, little blips of people paying a lot, slowly going up, and it's been ramping. which kind of is like stocks these days. It's like a lot have been ramping up. Um, I think reason why a lot of the stuff has been ramping up lately is investors are getting in and they're seeing it as a good investment, because I'd say investors really started getting in probably in here. So you're looking at 2018, 2017. This is when investors started like, hey, we'll make a investment group, buy all these comics, and if they're getting a rate of return of 10% a year, 20% a year, it's better than a lot of stocks. Like if you're looking at stocks, like more aggressive stock, it's like if you can get 10%, 20% a year, okay, that's really good. Like, so yeah, if you can just see the numbers and see the little greens, that just means that they're popping up, like going up higher, 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 higher compared to the previous year. This is 2019, 2020, last 12 months, last 90 days, and it's getting higher and higher and higher. Yeah, you'll run into your downs, but this is like an incomplete comic. Mean it's missing pages or a cover or like back cover, front cover or something. Or a coupon's clipped, or an ad is clipped out, or a pinup is clipped out. But yeah, it mostly is just going up and up. You're going to have some downs because you throw them in an auction. It could go for any price, and you'll have, so you can see, watch, click on like say 3.0. Look at that, just slowly, steadily going up. And say I looked at 2019. Like, you can tell that's probably an auction price, right? It's an odd number, but then you have up here, it's a little higher, that's maybe a buy it now. But then you had like literally a few days before, one sold for 28, and that is an auction. That links to Heritage. But yeah, you can tell like so when you throw in an auction, it's like kind of a crapshoot. And look at this one sold in auction for 43. 3 days later, one sold in auction for 36. So, that difference is $900, which is a big difference. You're looking at like 20-30% of the book value right there between these two. So, that's the thing with auctions. But then you have someone up here, they just straight up put it at a high price and someone paid for it because they wanted it. So yeah, this is definitely a very safe investment book. I recommend this for long-term investing. And here, we'll jump into... I have some like more numbers. Alright, here we go. Yeah. So here we go. If you bought, now this is 4.0. I'm going to copy this. This is a 4.0. This is I just did kind of lower grade, middle grade, high grade. The higher you go, the more you'll see it's kind of like who has the money and is willing to shell out that money. You'll see. So let's go 4.0, because 4.0 in this book is pretty good. 6.0 is your more high end. So in 2005, you could have picked up this book for an average of, $1,100, $1,000, right? In 2010, that average went up to almost 1,600. 2015 went up to 26. 2018, 46. Last year, 2020, the average was $7,000, and they've been slowly, steadily going up. And if you bought this book in 2005 for around 1,000, and then you sold on the average of 1,500, you would have made a 44% return on your money. So that's pretty good in 5 years. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Some stocks don't even get nearly that. So plus you have your original $1,000 investment. If you go from 2010 to 2015, right, you're making almost 70% on your investment, which is really good, right? That's 10%. Average is more, but it's like about 10% a year. And then this one from 2015 to 2018, right, in a 3-year span, you're looking at a 75% return. Now it's like, you can see when investors got in. It was after 2015 and it was already in 2018. It's because now they're like, well, hey, comics are making an average of 10% return, right? That's pretty good. And If you know what you're doing, it's pretty safe. And so, then you look at from 2018 to 2020, 2 years, 50% return. That's crazy. And guaranteed, this was during the crash. This original one, the crash was in 2008. Like, things weren't really like homes and all that kind of stuff's gone, wiped out, stocks wiped out, and its comics are still making a decent return. Overall, if you put in $1,000 in 2015, in today's money, you would have had your original investment of $1,000, but you would have had a 550% return in 15 years. That $1,000 would have netted you, $7,000, but it would have gained you a profit of nearly $6,000. That's crazy. Look at a 6-0. 6-0, you got $1,800 to 19, 60% return during the crash. During the peak, 2005, it was the housing peak, stock peak, crash. It was in 2008. And it kept on going down through 2009 and 2010, I think it was settling out. Still got a 60% return in those 5 years. It's crazy. You put it in the stock market during that time, good luck. Put it in houses, you're dead. Well, not dead, but you're you're definitely not doing very well. You definitely, if you bought a house in 2005 and you sold it in 2010, you lost a lot of money. And you're underwater. But if you had a comic book, next men one, 60% return on your investment. Next year, 86% return. Then this one, 63% return. Then a 40% return. All in all, if you had a 6-0 book, almost nearly 600% return. 615 years. Right? This is why I started this channel, to show people you can invest in comics. And my dad's been doing it forever, and he was in the 80s and stuff, and I remember people. I talked to this one customer, and he was telling me back in the, I think it was late 90s, early 2000s. He was talking about, he's like, I had this opportunity to buy this Action comic number one. It was a decent grade, $25,000 for an Action number one, decent grade, 20 years ago. That thing now, I don't know the grade. He didn't tell me the grade, and I doubt he even remembers this, but. Even if it was like a 4.0 or something like that, you're looking at like $500,000. A $25,000 investment in the late 90s or so, early 2000s, 20 so years later, $500,000. Like, that's crazy. And you can see they're not really going anywhere. Like stocks, during this 15-year period that I've shown you, you've seen stocks literally just go up, the crash, down, go up, the coronavirus crash, and all that kind of stuff. No, they're just slowly going up. They have a big spike recently, but that's because X-Men and the movie's coming out. But if you look at other comic books, this will be a slowly increase, right? Now look at the higher end. This is where it gets a little harder because you have to find the person with the right amount of money. Down here, it's easy. That's why you're getting these returns. So this one, in Ado, could have gotten 2005 for $7,000. And there's a lot less data on this. Like I showed you, this is like one sale, a year. Because they're also a lot more rare as you get higher up. There's hundreds in these grades. There's, in the 10s, maybe 20s in these grades. So then, 5 years later, 100% return. Doubled your money. 5 years. That's pretty good. But then the next 5 years, it kind of just didn't really do anything on this particular. Like the year prior to this, 2014, I think it sold for $16,000. I was trying to make everything fair, so I just did whatever. There's one sold for 14. But yeah, so it basically stayed the same. Not that great. But then from 2015 to 2018, you got an 80, more than all these other returns. An 83% return. Look at that. And then, of course, for this, it kind of just stabilized. Yeah, but all in all, if you would have had it, averaged them out, you would have had a nearly 250% return on your investment from when you first bought it, 15 years ago. And so this is just, this testament to comics that they're pretty stable, and with more movies coming out and people, loving comics. And I'll do even older Golden Age stuff. But yeah, So X-Men 1, get it. Like I showed you, like even if you got it before this boom, you know, it was still steadily going up. So, I recommend, yes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. If you see any value in this, if you want me to do a particular book, shoot me a comment, and you know, I'll do some market research into that. All right, thanks.